Great. Thank you so much. Lots of familiar faces here. We'll go ahead and get started. Travis is going to kick us off here.
Next. All right, so some of you folks may not even know what digital accessibility is. So I want to just kind of simplify it right over here. On the left side, you have a faculty member who's designing a course in Brew and Learn. And on the right side, you have, let's say, a student. From the end user's perspective, digital accessibility is learning how to access the internet using assistive technologies that will help you get there and help you navigate the internet. In this case, we have a disabled user who's using a chin mouse, a puff and suck switch, which simulates left and right clicks, a head stabilizer. And this type of technology generally works pretty well. The CAE provides it sometimes, but a lot of our students who come into university, they're very familiar with their technology and what they really want is to have content designed in such a way that allows them to use their technology. On the left side, you have you, the faculty, and your job is to design in such a way that allows people with disabilities to access your content. And sometimes that requires a little bit additional thought, a different additional structure to your, whether it be PowerPoints or PDFs, or even your courses in Brew and Learn. But generally, there are some guardrails and there's a lot of best practices that you could learn. And then there's a lot of support as well through instructional designers. Next. So some of the technologies that people with disabilities use and the types of examples of accessibility. So for example, in the accessibility world, we talk a lot about screen readers for low vision and blind individuals. It's just a way that who are low vision blind access the internet, which is using text to speech. Captions for deaf and hard of hearing. We know that 90% of Gen Z people watch TV with captions on. So this is an accessibility feature that has become mainstream. We have keyboard navigation for dexterity. So not only do screen readers, but also people who are missing hands or carpal tunnel need to be able to navigate without a mouse. And there's ways that you could design that allows that to happen. We have screen magnifiers for low vision. So you think about how you design in such a way that allows when you expand the screen to 200%, whether it still makes sense. That's more about on the developer side than on the faculty side. We have color contrast, making sure that there's enough color contrast for people who are colorblind and making sure buttons are big enough and also reducing flashing elements or looping videos that could cause epilepsy. These are just a few examples of digital accessibility in the real world. Next. The laws on accessibility are coming together right now in this moment. So a long time ago, the first law around around accessibility or disability rights was the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And you see on the right side, we have disability rights activist Judy Heumann, very famous accessibility rights activist. And she is saying in this video that we need to not only have a law, but we need to implement and enforce the law because it took many years for the laws to be enforced. And then after that, we see, about 15 years later, Herbert Walker Bush and Justin Whitlock Dart, the cowboy sitting next to him, they're both Texans, and they signed something called the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. And these were the two major laws that guided accessibility and disability rights. But recently, under the Biden administration, there was an update to the ADA called, which is Title II of the ADA, Section Title II of the ADA, which really outlines specifically for government agencies, large public agency organizations such as public universities need to be accessible now. We need to not only serve all of our websites accessibly, we need to make sure our logged in content, like within Brew and Learn, is also accessible. And this is a major change from where it was because it was very loose before the definition, and the ADA didn't even address digital accessibility. We were relying on the original law, which I talked about, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which had Section 508, which gave you the guidance. But now it's all coming together under one law, the ADA, and it's being updated with very specific language, which is giving the lawyers a little bit of nervousness because what does that mean for the university? It's saying that by April of 2026, middle of April 2026, we need to be serving accessible content. And I think that also includes accommodations. We're still going to be using accommodations. Faculty will never stop using accommodations, or students will never stop using accommodations. But we need to strive for a higher level of accessibility in all of our content. And the TLC, the DCP, ITS is here to give you the tools and the support you need to get there. But it is important that you begin looking at your content and working with instructional designers if you're not clear on which content is and is not accessible. That's the Title II update. I'm going to pass it now to Nate, who's going to talk about Brew and Learn accessibility.
Thank you, Travis, for all that context and information. So you may be asking yourself, how do I get started? What tools do we have available to kind of kickstart this for me? So fortunately, we have a tool called Ally that is already integrated into Brew and Learn. It works in the background. It's already something that you've got sort of wired into your courses or sandboxes in that environment. So you don't have to do anything different to get this thing started. And Ally is a tool that evaluates the accessibility of several different document types and multimedia uploaded by really anybody with instructor or TA privileges to a course. So it's checking the documents and images against those standards that Travis introduced just a minute ago, and it gives really clear feedback when there are accessibility issues found in any of that content. Let's go to the next slide. So another really interesting thing that Ally does, and it's already doing this in the background without really any intervention from instructors, is it provides alternative formats to students. And so when there are documents in your course and a student needs it in a different type of format, there are many options where Ally can sort of create that on the fly for students without any intervention. And people are doing that already. We know that that's a feature of Ally that is already proven very useful for folks. If you look at the two graphics that I provided, the one on the right shows sort of an example of what type of feedback you might get as an instructor if, say, you uploaded an image that didn't have alt text. It gives you some information about what's missing. It tells you why it's important. It even gives you some support and some guidance in telling you how to solve and resolve that issue. If you fix it in that moment, you'll actually see the score of that rating go up as well. So we're hoping that this kind of helps guide people in learning different sort of actionable ways that they can improve those scores and the resulting accessibility of content in the tool. Next.
Okay, thanks, Nate. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're moving towards a more accessible campus. And when we're talking about digital accessibility at UCLA, I really want to emphasize these three things that are happening. So first of all, there's many folks, including Travis and Nate, we've been working together to really develop and strengthen training and resources. So when you're looking for information about how do I do this or what is this, there are live trainings, there's online resources, there's an online module. We'll share the links to that at the end here, available so that you can get access to that information really quickly. We also are thinking as a campus about how to dedicate resources to the areas that need the most support. So some disciplines, some departments might need more help than others, might need more specific or targeted resources. We might need more support around people who know how to correct PDFs that are not accessible, that sort of thing. And recently there was a Bruin post announcing a digital accessibility governance structure, and that's really going to help us have the backing of campus leadership to allocate more resources to this initiative and really have a data-informed strategy. And then the third piece about collective engagement and adoption is really about, we have the trainings, we have the resources, but we need people to engage and actually make their courses more accessible. And so we need to be communicating about this. We need to be answering questions. We need to be getting people involved. And so there's ongoing initiatives to do that. And so for the instructors, there is a call to action here. And the first thing is that we just want you to learn about digital accessibility. So we have websites that you can look at. We have an online training module. There's trainings you can engage in just to really understand what that term means. What are some of the things that you can be doing, like adding alt text, like using heading structure, that kind of thing. And then once you learn about it, actually update your course materials. And if it feels like a big lift, if you're looking at your ally score and you're like, oh man, this is going to be a ton of work, I really want you to have the mindset of, okay, every quarter I'm going to make my course more and more accessible. It might not be realistic to fix everything all in one go, but you also can work with a library to replace some of your files that are inaccessible. Some of the things might be a quicker fix than others. And if you're learning about how to make your slides accessible as you're creating new materials, then that'll help moving forward each quarter. And then just to continue to employ best practices and check for accessibility. So anytime you're creating something, check the accessibility score for it and see how you might, if you forgot to add alt text somewhere, or you didn't give the document a title and you need to give it a title, that sort of thing. So just kind of embed these practices into your workflow that you would normally be doing. So I just want to end here by saying that there are so many resources available. This is a screenshot from the Teaching and Learning Center has a website section called Making Your Course Accessible. So this is one example of how you can use heading structures. So if you're using Google Docs or Microsoft Office, you are using the heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. You might already be doing that because it makes a table of contents for you, which is really nice. But what you don't want to do is have a title that is just bold, font size 20, so it looks bigger, but it's not actually tagged as the heading 1 of the document. So those sorts of things, I would recommend to just click through the website resources as the first way to get started. And then Travis's group, Disability and Computing Programs, has lots of trainings that you can attend. They're usually on Zoom. They're 1 hour. It's really easy to engage. They're wonderful trainings. I highly recommend doing those. There's also an e-module in Brew and Learn. It's if you go to the Making Your Course Accessible page, you can enroll in it there. If you're someone who's like, hey, I just want to carve out an hour and a half, and really just do a deep dive into this and kind of go through a module, that's available to you. And then there's always office hours and consultations, particularly if you like get stuck with something and you're like, I'm trying this and it's just not working, reach out so that we can set up a time to meet and give you more support. So Caroline, if you don't mind just putting those links in the chat to those resources. There is the website resources, and then there's the Bruin post that announced the governance structure, the trainings, and yeah. So I'm gonna stop sharing here if you want to stop the recording for the presentation, and then we can transition to Q&A.